Hello! Welcome to the Jericho Comedy Podcast. Who are we? We're Jericho Comedy. Are we an award-winning comedy club based in Oxford? Why, yes, we are. Do I sound like a bit of a dick asking myself these questions? No, I'm great. My name's Conor McReynolds, and this week I have an appointment with the doctor. Ed Patrick is our guest on the Jericho Comedy Podcast today. Ed's a superb comedian who regularly performs at Jericho Comedy, and he's also a podcaster and full-time doctor in the NHS, so he's a proper legend. I'll be chatting to Ed all about his comedy and life as a doctor, and later you'll hear a clip of Ed performing live at Jericho Comedy. We're also going to be playing you a message from our wonderful charity partner, Oxfordshire Mind. But now here's the man himself. It's Dr. Ed Patrick. All right, Ed Patrick, hello, how are you?
Hello, I'm very well, thank you. How are you, Conor?
Good. I'm very well, thank you. Thank you so much for joining me in the Jericho Comedy Podcast.
Yeah. It's wonderful. It's wonderful to be here. It's a very comfortable room you've got here.
Yes, yeah, I'm very glad Jericho Comedy shelled out for these very fancy studios, our own house each to record in.
Very spacious.
That is the kind of quality that Jericho Comedy are committed to. Ed, you are a doctor working in the NHS in what's widely regarded as one of the least eventful periods in NHS history. Just how bored are you day to day at the moment?
It's been very dull. It's just, nothing urgent or exciting.
Yeah.
Medicine,
Just getting through a lot of Sudoku, I'm assuming, yeah.
Just nothing eventful, really. I can't really tell you what's happening over the last year, yeah.
How have you been?
It's been obviously, if you haven't been aware, there's been a coronavirus pandemic, and this is what I love about calling up things at the moment. So when you call up sort of the bank or something, there's always an introduction of due to the coronavirus, and it's like we know, it's been happening. I've started using it as a delay for my in my own life. So when my girlfriend asks me why I haven't done something, I say, due to the coronavirus pandemic, there have been delays. Gets me out of trouble every time. But in terms of medicine, it's been, it went absolutely nuts and then sort of calmed down-ish and then calmed down a bit further, yet everything's still sort of a bit on tenterhooks.
Because, obviously, the NHS, a stressful thing to work in, even when there isn't a global pandemic. But the last, 6 months or so must just be kind of next level stress. How are you coping, personally with the stress?
I think the real sort of stress period, obviously, was when we all knew when it was as well, when, every day was in lockdown and we were all sort of going in. All our jobs kind of shifted. Well, as an anaesthetist as well, our job was to go to intensive care because there's some crossover in intensive care and in anaesthetics. In fact, intensive care, used to be, I think it was, I'm right in saying it started off as sort of an anaesthetic specialty and then sort of spread out. So because we look after airways, people breathing on ventilators, having operations, obviously we naturally have a role in intensive care as well. So that's where we went. So, all operations apart from real emergencies stopped and things like that. So you were coming in and doing these 13-hour shifts, in really quite a new environment. So it was all quite hot, sweaty, stressful, sort of unknown. And so kind of coping in that period was slightly different because 13 hours meant that I had 11 hours off if I was doing a run of them. And it takes me an hour pretty much to get to hospital. So then we've got 9 hours left. So we're looking at least 2 hours staring at the phone or wall. And then we've got, sort of 5 or 6 hours sleeping and then 1 hour to shovel food in, essentially. So that was difficult. You kind of got through those. And then after that, you just thought, it's like everyone else, you just try to do anything you could to take your mind off it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think, and just start looking for escapes more than more than anything else, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I
Well,
kept like running and stuff, and
yeah,
start play,
you've kind of
start playing
returning to
video games.
comedy a little bit. Like you've not really. Am I right in saying you've not really kind of taken part in sort of the new world of comedy, like the online gigs and
The online
driving gigs
gigs.
and that kind of thing?
No, I haven't. I mean, they obviously came about pretty soon afterwards, didn't they? All the Zoom gigs and stuff
Yeah.
like that. It's not something I've been asked to do a couple of them, but yeah, I just haven't really felt. I don't know. Comedy has always been a sort of release from the medicine, so
Hmm.
it was always part and parcel. So that would be the big release for me. If it was a stressful day at hospital, could go and do a gig, and then that would release it. And then if it was a stressful day in at the gig, then the hospital next day. I always lived with that sort of balance, but
Yeah.
I didn't feel like, not that it's a different format. I think the online thing, and I didn't feel like it was going to be the same. Obviously, not that I'm completely
Yeah.
averse to doing it, but I wasn't feeling like it would be the same kind of gig. Do you know what I mean? It's
I
not.
guess so much of kind of ordinary gigs, live gigs or whatever, is the social aspect of it too. So you're stood with the comedians at the back of the cafe or in the pub afterwards or whatever, and you get to have a little chat and a little joke around with them and a kind of debrief on the gig. Whereas the online thing, you're sort of sat in your room, and then it's just a case of like turning your camera off.
Well, yeah, exactly. So it's not the same, but also with the audience as well. You get that instant reaction with the audience, and there's the whole atmosphere, and
Yeah,
it's a completely different. It's a different format to doing things. And so, like I said, I'm not completely averse to it, but I think it's almost like a different thing I'd do in that situation. A different kind of uh, entertainment or comedy. Like you see what's happening on Twitch and things like that. People approach it very differently.
yeah,
You can't, no matter how much you try, you cannot recreate a comedy gig online like it is when it's real in life. No one's gonna. I can't imagine someone's gonna say, "I much prefer seeing a comedy gig online than actually in a
yeah,
real sort of comedy club sort of thing."
yeah,
So
yeah,
so
definitely.
it's a different thing. So no, I haven't done that, but I've done little bits and bobs. But I think I'd do a different kind of show for that sort of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Have you
Well,
done
it's
any of them?
I haven't. I kind of very stupidly, really only in the last couple of weeks thought, oh, I'd quite like to try that. Just as normal gigs are coming back, and I'm assuming Zoom gigs are gonna die out anytime now. I'm sort of beginning to think I've done a few of the driving gigs, like Jericho did some lovely driving gigs over the summer.
So I've
Um,
heard they're very different as well, because you can't necessarily hear people laughing, but you can see them honking their
yeah, well, it
horns and
depends.
flashing their lights.
We've been to a few. So we went. Harry, lovely Harry of Jericho Comedy, kind of took care of booking for some other like big kind of national tours. So like Suzuki do one at the drive-in. I don't know why it's at, but there we go. And it's really really big, spaced out. Like the one we went to was on Blackheath in London. Huge, big green expanse. All the cars are really like far away from each other, super far away from the stage. And so the acts on stage there, because all the cars were so far away and so spaced out, got absolutely nothing. And
As in, like, they couldn't hear it. It's not
as
necessarily
in,
they didn't
yeah,
get.
they couldn't hear
Yeah.
any laughter at all. Um, so it's kind of that kind of gig, I'm assuming, would be very strange. But the ones that we did at Jericho, we did up at Toad, the lovely Toad Distillery in Oxford. We did it in their car park there. So it was a little bit more contained. We had trees kind of all around us. So it kind of trapped the sound maybe a little bit better, that kind of thing. So yeah, we got a little bit of laughter, and you stood a better chance there of seeing people in their cars. But it is still performing to cars.
Exactly. The best one out of all of these, actually, that has the most natural feel to it that I've seen, is the one that Alex and Harry organised on the
The
punting.
punts
Yeah,
that looked
on the boats.
amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
Well,
I saw a clip of it. I think there's a couple of clips online. Did you put the clip up?
No, I didn't. I think an audience member sent us a
Right.
lovely clip.
Well, if you watch it, you see sort of rolling laughter and natural laughter, and that is something you miss out in a live gig. Is if someone's in a car next to someone else, they're not necessarily going to hear the laugh, and sometimes that sort of wave of things goes through an audience. So actually, you know, that happened on the punt. There was a wave, not on the water, but there was a wave, that goes through the audience that possibly you don't get online, or you don't get in the cars as well.
Yeah. We've done some lovely outdoor ones as well, kind of up at Toad with, people in their own little pods, kind of sat at tables or sat in chairs and stuff. And those felt quite normal. Again, like some of the laughter, that the sound kind of disappears upwards a little bit, but you can actually see people in the front row. You can chat to them. It was as close to a kind of quote unquote normal gig as we've had in the last few months.
I'd also say that is probably, thinking about it more. I mean, it was a really clever idea, because it's better than any other outdoor gig. I'd say as well. I wasn't there, but looking at that clip, and it's because on the outdoor gigs, people obviously have to be spaced out, even in before the social distancing in a tent.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? If you are in a punting boat, it only takes a little bit of manoeuvring and you suddenly find yourself in the water. So actually the audience already feels slightly vulnerable. So, your heckles have got to be pretty good. And
absolutely. That sense of danger is what promoters thrive on, yeah.
and if you're an awkward audience member, it just takes one of the neighbouring audiences just to slightly tip your punts and, everyone's going to behave.
I like that. I'm going to have to try to think, how do we replicate those conditions when we're back in the cafe?
I think what
just hold a bucket of water at the bottom of the stairs, and I think anyone who's out of line would just throw it.
For the next time they do that gig, Harry or Alex should be positioned in a ridiculously sized motorboat that's threatening to drive past any hecklers.
I like that as an idea. That will be going in the Jericho Comedy suggestion box. Well, speaking of Alex and Harry, I also want to talk about you too, because you are our lovely guest on the Jericho Comedy Podcast. But when did you start gigging with Alex and Harry, and when did the happy marriage of Jericho Comedy and Ed Patrick come into being?
So when I came down to Oxford, so I studied medicine up in Aberdeen, and I wasn't really doing comedy much. I was doing bits and bobs. I was doing like things for university and stuff like that. And I did a couple of uni competitions. But, when I really started doing it was a couple of years after I came down here. That's when I really started focusing on it. And just when I moved down, there used to be, it wasn't called Jericho Comedy. It was called something else, run by someone else at the Jericho Tavern. And Alex was there on one of the first gigs, and I remember it was one of these. It was almost like an Edinburgh show. So I kind of came in to do this gig late, and there was maybe like 7 people. It was a Tuesday night. It was raining. 7 people in the audience. Yeah, and there was someone up doing some. Doing a gig, and sort of part of it was Alex, who was also sat on the stage. Spreading jam onto a slice of toast. That's the first time I met Alex, and I just thought, God, who is this guy, right? so that's when I first. I think that's when we first met, and then I think we just kept meeting through that, and then Harry and I can't remember. It's all kind of morphed into one, but they just started doing the odd gig together. I think, just organising the odd thing together. And so I guess, we were sort of, in order to kind of get it going, you needed a bunch of local acts, really, that would be able to be reliable. And Oxford had quite a few at that time, especially, people in the university looking for shows as well. So they kind of, and it was good for me because obviously I live in Oxford, so it was local to do stuff too. So it then just kind of grew and grew and grew. And they had a very... they had an ethos which is great. Basically, it's a very sort of welcoming and a very inclusive atmosphere. Yeah. And all gigs are really lovely gigs, in terms of what the audience expect or are there for, what the acts do as well. They look after the show and the dynamics. And I remember me and Alex always talked about how gigs would be set up, with sort of speakers, microphones, where the audience are, how the room looks and stuff like that. And Alex was always in tune with that. So you knew that on a gig, he is very good at sort of looking at the room and saying, this is or isn't going to work, sort of thing. Whereas you've probably done gigs as well, where you go into the room and you're like, we've got like a tiny speaker the size of my palm, on a table,
and we have to compete with the lads watching the football round the corner, and there's no door between them.
And it's distorted sound, and then also things like the audience members being spread out and stuff like that, and not the right atmosphere. What are you selling? And so I think they brought together a lot of the things that Oxford sort of the population is interested in, and also when I say that, I mean stuff like you got the Skeptics thing, which is obviously a very well attended sort of night too.
Yes,
got lots of interesting things like all the museums and things like that, and as well as doing the gigs in house in colleges that they do, the college comedy nights. They're taking a sort of an interesting twist on things. So you look at those museum gigs they do. So the Oxford Natural History Museum, where they have certain themes during the month, and they've taken shows there. So it was, one of them was bacteria. And they basically booked a lineup that would talk about bacteria, loosely linked to that. And you've got a room that's like 300, and they sold that, and they sold it out again. They've sold, so suddenly they've sold out 4 different rooms on one night on a theme, and it's, but it's interesting stuff with a twist. It's not, and also very interesting, diverse themes, diverse lineups. You're unlikely to go there and think, I've just seen monotony, or you know what I mean. And also very welcoming as well to new acts too. So
absolutely,
So it's something that's fostered on a very sort of lovely and sort of generous atmosphere, which comedy's hard. Comedy and getting into some places is difficult. Lots of gigs. When I was first dabbling around, I was doing gigs in horrible sort of places, and 2 or 3 people above a pub and things like that. And they will give people a go at the gig, and the amount of people I've seen who've come and gone, my God, this is just so nice. They might have just come from London where they've been doing gigs to sort of 10 people and stuff, and then suddenly they come to these full rooms of like 40, 50 people who are so generous with their laughter and so ready to sort of laugh. But also the interesting thing I always say about Jericho gigs is that they are in it for the yarn as well. So whereas some other gigs, you feel like the atmosphere in the room or the nature of the room requires comedy to be kind of sort of hard, fast and punchy. They give you, those atmospheres give you a chance to try things out. A bit like the Red Raws in Edinburgh, those gigs where at the stand comedy clubs, like they do on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday in Edinburgh, Glasgow and Newcastle. And everyone knows they're sort of new act or new material nights, and everyone's sort of up for that. They give you that space to sort of explore an idea. And if you don't get a laugh for a little while, that's okay. You can always just pull it back and go somewhere else. And so that, it's a really sort of nice atmosphere to develop.
You're absolutely right. Something that Alex sometimes says, I mean, obviously, Jericho Comedy, it's comedy. There will be loads of laughs. But as you say, if someone is a bit newer, or if you're trying out some new and interesting ideas, something that Alex told me, which I find such a security blanket, when I was first trying material on a subject that was a little bit outside of my comfort zone, but Alex had asked me to write something, so I did. And he kind of told me, on a night like this, sometimes it's okay just to be interesting for a while. Like if you're interesting and funny, that's the dream. But if it's not funny necessarily in that moment, just be interesting, and that's enough for an audience to kind of hold their attention for a bit. And our audiences are just so lovely and warm and welcoming, as you said as well. So it's really ideal conditions for comedy, Jericho Comedy, and that setup.
It's ideal. It's ideal for writing in that sort of atmosphere.
Yeah,
because there are places where you'll go and just being interesting isn't enough. You do have to be good. But being allowed to fail almost, which is what you've got to do. It's one of the hardest things to do in comedy and take is just being allowed to fail. And also, there's not a lot of places you can be allowed to fail in. That's how you write. You try stuff out.
Yeah.
You have to. So to have that atmosphere and have that supportive sort of outlook on things means it gives you a blanket to create things, and then you can go to those other gigs that are you want to. You probably haven't got as much as a sort of safety net to go on about 10 minutes about I don't know whatever specific thing about the sort of fibers on animal hairs that you wanted to get into the real nicheness of, So it gives you the opportunity to write stuff and then to take that elsewhere essentially, and then hope. It's almost like I would try stuff there for the very first time that I wasn't sure about. Sometimes you try stuff that you're like, I could slip this in. Doesn't matter. It's probably quite funny, but there's stuff, especially new concepts and new ideas, and it's one of the places that I would happily try something brand new, and happily, because of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I should probably stress for the listener, if you're listening to this and you've never been to a Jericho Comedy, they might think it's just a place where people are trying new and niche ideas that might not always be funny. But as you said before, the setup of the night is always such that, there's going to be a mix of really experienced, like TV acts or whatever, and some newer acts and some really solid acts trying some new stuff. There's always guaranteed laughs in every set.
It's gonna. It doesn't mean it's not going to be good, but it definitely means that it's going to be interesting and different. And there's a reason why they have. They put out gigs and they sell out immediately, and people keep coming back week after week. So it is slightly different in that sense, but it's that there's a reason why they do that, and it is because it's it is, the nights are great and memorable, and I can think back to specific nights, probably more than some other gigs, because of how different the nights are each time.
Yeah. There's a really, really special atmosphere, which is why, of course. Things happen like the Chortle Awards 2 years running, that audiences and acts have to vote for their favourite nights in the UK, and Jericho 2 years in a row has won that award for best night in the Midlands. Did you know Oxford was in the Midlands, Ed?
I do now. I would also like there to be an award for the best storer of chairs for a comedy night, and I would like to be nominated for that.
Ed Patrick, listener, very kindly stores about 100 of Jericho Comedy's chairs in his shed.
It's not 100. I wish it was. I wish I had the retail estate for retail space for 100. But real estate, not retail space. They've actually gone now. I think he's taken them. Yeah, I think Alex has taken them. But I did have about
those chairs
30.
came into their own this summer. We had to use them for our outdoor gigs.
Well, I always thought, because I've got a little garden, I was thinking, it's about 30 chairs. I could stack them up, and then we could have a gig in my garden. And then the only thing that's really put me off that is that I don't really want the neighbours to overhear, or
Yes, there'd be that, and also audience would have to go in and use your bathroom.
I did think about that, yeah. unless I need a specific fertiliser.
Ed, I want to ask you about kind of going back to when you first started gigging with Alex and Harry, because you guys did a show together in Edinburgh.
Oh,
what year was
yes,
that?
Sorry. Oh, that's what you were leading on. I forgot about that. Yes. Oh gosh, we did this horrendous photo shoot. When I say horrendous, at the time it seemed like a good idea, and we did get as good audiences in, but we basically just wanted to go up and have a bit of fun and try some things out, and this was before they'd really got Jericho going. And we just wanted to go to Edinburgh, like most acts do. You just want to, have a bit of fun. and also have a consistent run of gigs. When you're not really gigging, you don't do it professionally. Your times for doing it. You might do a gig 1 week, you might do 2 gigs a month. Go to Edinburgh. Part of the enjoyment is that you do a gig every day and you sort of hone and get better. So we went up as a 3-hander gig under the guise of, I was a doctor, Alex was a teacher, and Harry was an archaeologist. And it was sort of a doctor, teacher, archaeologist walking to a bar idea. So we all basically get up and do our stuff. So we did go and do that. Yeah, you're right.
And how did that go? Was that your first experience of Edinburgh?
I can't remember. I think I did a similar thing once when I was in. No. Yeah. So it wasn't my only experience. I've obviously done gigs, done the odd gig there, but I did. I had done other gigs there, but that was probably the one that was the first sort of proper full run, I think, or actually living in Edinburgh doing a gig. That's what I mean, living in Edinburgh doing a gig. When I was in Aberdeen studying medicine, I popped down to Edinburgh a few times and stuff like that. But again, it was just sort of sporadic. It was almost like doing it as a hobby. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. That makes sense. And in terms of, obviously you talk a lot on stage about your career being a doctor and your experiences in medicine and that kind of thing. I'm really interested to know, are there any kind of ethical conundrums that come out of, or I'm assuming you have to be very selective about the kinds of topics from your work you cover, or do you kind of just have a carte blanche to write what you want to write about?
I think you have to, in order to be creative, you've got to try and have that blank sheet, and you've got to try and let yourself be creative. But that's you and your mind and what you're doing and what you're writing. But when it comes to presenting it, yes, you obviously need to think about what you're saying in terms of, if I'm talking about medicine, you're not going to talk about specific details of someone. You can or a specific someone, or make something. It's outside of comedy as well. It's about not doing something that would be potentially identifiable, talking about obviously people's patients' names, things like that. You're not going to do that. If you look at literature and all the medical kind of books that people do, all of them will have some sort of creative element to make sure everything is anonymous. It's not, and so whereas you're reading what potentially is a true story, what actually is, it's an amalgamation of experiences and stories that have led up to this story. So you won't have anything unless it's got the specific consent of that patient or of that person. So that's what happens with that. But like everything else, actually what is interesting in when people talk about jobs or experiences and stuff is your experience and your stories of that situation. So actually a lot of the time you find you're talking about yourself. So you're giving your story, and that's tends to have what's come out of how I talk about medicine. It's about my experience and my story through it. And there are obviously other vehicles along the way that have, enabled these stories to happen. So it depends what you're writing about essentially. But when it comes to something like medicine, obviously there's obvious things you wouldn't sort of talk about, but at the same time, you're really talking about yourself.
Yeah. That's very interesting. And kind of aside from medicine, if you weren't a doctor and you weren't talking about that on stage, what else would you consider to be a kind of classic Ed Patrick bit of material? Like, what topics are you innately drawn to when it comes to writing?
That's a good question. I mean,
because you've got podcasts about things like The Witcher.
Yeah, so I was literally just about to say I was going to blanket answer this question with basically my geeky, odd, weird side to me. I think that would be it. And you're right, like things like The Witcher, is something which is a game, book, and TV series. Absolutely mad for. I think there's lots of little quirky things that would probably be the sort of things I would feed into. I'd probably talk a lot more about those, and I don't know. It depends, isn't it? It's an interesting question, but I don't know actually. I think I would definitely start picking up on a lot of the sort of geeky, nerdy things for sure.
Yeah.
I'm really
Have you
sort of
always
exploring
then,
them.
I mean, for as long as you've been doing comedy, have you always been talking about
No,
medicine?
no.
Oh, so
So,
what did you talk about?
So there's just stuff. What did I used to talk about? I used to just talk about just things I'd found, or like everything else, you kind of come across a topic, don't you? And one of the things,
Yeah.
like one of the pieces of material, which I did keep doing, obviously when I'd when I started talking about medicine as well. But I used to have this. Do you ever see me do this material about a book that I read called
Yeah.
Regeneration?
Love that bit.
Yeah. So basically, I read this passage, and I just remember reading it, going, "This is just nuts." This whole passage. I read this, and I read it again, and then I thought, is this me? And this is the thing: is that like probably most of the people, obviously most of the people, because this book has won prizes and is quite, it's a very popular part of a trilogy.
Mhm.
Yet no one else has really picked up on this thing. So it's obviously my mind that has overreacted to this, and so I've taken that out, and then I've created this whole scene of, this is what's happening in this, and that's what I presented to the audience with this book. So I think it's that kind of stuff. I would probably, whatever my mind sort of focuses in on and picks up at, that probably no one else has even thought.
But that's what's nice, isn't it, about comedy, is I think to write something that isn't just generic and kind of, you've heard 50,000 different versions of it from different comedians, like to be really curious and really dig into like one thing. Something I think Chelsea Birkby's so good at is like finding one specific tiny thought and really digging and digging and digging into it for everything there is in it. Because the more you dig, the more you're going to find completely unique thoughts on it that nobody will have ever taken the time or spent the energy in kind of analyzing or thinking about it.
Yeah, and
that's kind of like what you do.
And that's some of the best things. That's the thing I love doing, is like taking something, presenting it to someone, and then for most people just going, the initial reaction is, well, that's fairly fine, that's not normal, and then you going or me going, no, it's not, and this is why, and then you could, and with that passion for the argument, being able to put that across, and then completely show a completely different side to the situation. That's what's funny for other people, is that they then see you and they see the passion.
It's so funny to kind of, because it can be funny on different levels. Like funny that someone ever took the time to think about it, and like it's such an unimportant kind of pernickety, silly little thought, but then the more you go into it and explain why it should be thought about more, but also you've taken this completely unimportant thing and spent so long thinking about it and writing and editing and crafting this really good little bit. And people, I think, just think, what the hell do they do with their day that they spend so long thinking about X or Y? But I think that becomes funny on kind of multiple levels.
It's just ridiculous as well. And that's exactly what happened with that book passage. I just had it written down for a while, and then I just kind of kept playing around with it, kept coming up with different, and then it just suddenly became, like a 4 or 5 minute piece.
Yeah. Who knows? Edinburgh 2021 might be an entire show about that book passage.
Well,
that might be a stretch. Well, Ed, there's loads I want to talk to you about, but right now we've got to go to a little message from our lovely charity partner, Oxfordshire Mind. Have a listen to this.
Are you caring for someone and struggling to cope?
Suffering with low mood or feeling anxious?
Experiencing discrimination and not sure of your options?
You are not alone.
Did you know that you can ask to speak to an Oxfordshire Mind Wellbeing worker through your local GP practice? A wellbeing worker can help you to identify what is important to you, offer time, space and support for you to work out the positive changes you want to make, and support you to reach those goals. Tell you about relevant services you can access to improve your wellbeing and support you with making referrals. Our service is currently available over the phone to anyone registered with a participating GP practice in the City and South West Oxfordshire. For more information, please ask at your GP practice or call the Oxfordshire Mind Information Line on 01865 247 788.
All right, Ed, being a doctor in a hospital during a global pandemic might feel like a high-pressure situation, but you don't know pressure until you've taken part in our next feature, Pressing Questions. I'm going to ask you a series of challenging, unflinching questions, and all I need from you are some honest answers. Can you do that for me?
I will try my best under pressure.
Thank you very much.
It feels like Mastermind.
Mastermind wishes it was this intense.
You ever notice that when you don't get the right answer in Mastermind, the presenter just has a little bit of a voice that just exudes disappointment in you.
Yeah,
sort of like,
I'm not angry, I'm just disappointed.
Actually, the
I
answer...
kind of just wish he'd shout instead.
Yeah, you say something urgently, he goes, actually, the answer's chickpeas. Next question.
All right, Ed, here's your first question. Do you think that your life would be better, worse, or much the same if your name was Tristan?
Just Tristan, no surname.
Let's say Tristan Montefiore Darcy. Double barrel, Tristan Montefiore Darcy.
Oh, it'd probably be better, because I'd probably tick a few sort of exciting things for people. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'd get.
You wouldn't even necessarily have to perform right-wing comedy. You would just sound like someone who does.
Oh yeah. Well, no, but it was Darcy. It was there was something French in there, wasn't there?
Montefiore Darcy. I think Montefiore might be Italian.
Oh really? Okay. Well, I tell you what, a bit of Italian can't go wrong. I think it would be better.
The ladies would love it.
With the name Ed Patrick, what people say is, what's your surname? And I say Patrick, and they go, no, what's your surname? And I'm like, no, Patrick is my surname. So I'm going to say that it would definitely be better having that name.
This is demonstrably the damage that's caused by all those three Paddies jokes. Everybody thinks Irish people are stupid. What's your surname? Patrick. No, you dumb Irish prick. Your surname.
Well,
that is the damage of casual racism.
Just wait until I have a child and I call them Paddy Patrick. Or Patrick Patrick. And you know what? No one can do anything about it. You can say you can say it's unfair, it's cruel, but who's going to stop me? Who's going to stop that?
There'll be a support group, and it'll just be Paddy Patrick and Neville, Gary and Phil Neville's father. And
I'm gonna give him or her the middle name as well. So it's whoever it is,
Patricia Paddy Patrick.
Whatever child I have is going to be called Patrick. That's what. Yeah, Patrick, Patricia, Patricio, Patrick. That's what it'll be. Deal with that.
All right, Ed. What is due, in your opinion, for a revival? What's due a comeback?
Crystal Maze.
Oh, did it not come back recently?
Kind of came back, didn't it? It's a celebrity, but it didn't come back properly. What we need is not celebrities doing it. We need the everyday people doing it. That's
just
what's best.
Proper morons.
Back in their onesies and their terrible haircuts. It's basically... It's sort of like a series of mini escape rooms, isn't it? And
yes.
If escape rooms were that interesting... watching a group of people, then they would be televised, and obviously it's not. It's obviously interesting to play, and I think actually Crystal Maze probably embodies the best of what an escape room has to watch visually.
Yes, I think so. I think that's fair to say. I mean, all escape rooms would be better if you had Richard O'Brien or Richard Ayoade there kind of just making silly faces to camera while you were trying to figure out where the key was in the coat pocket in the wardrobe or whatever.
Yeah, all the skill. Yeah, I always wondered how I would fare. How I would fare with the skill games and the arrows and stuff. Because there's some games that they played where you might have a timer, but the thing was, if you hit 3 bad shots or something, then you were locked in automatically. They're the toughies. Yeah.
And those people are still there to this day. That's the real tragedy.
Exactly. Obviously, when you say it's had a regeneration, obviously you can do the experience, can't you? It's all come with this wave of escape rooms, is that you can go and do a Crystal Maze experience sort of thing. So maybe you're right.
Yeah.
It has already made a comeback, but it's not televised comeback. It's made a comeback in real life, which is more important.
It just needs a PR push, is what we're saying.
Mm.
All right, Ed. David's father has 3 sons: Snap, Crackle, and who?
Snap, Crackle, and an orthopedic surgeon, probably.
I'm afraid not.
Oh,
do you want to go again?
Oh, what, do I have to have it's a real answer?
Oh, yeah. David's father has 3 sons: Snap, Crackle, and who's the 3rd son? No, David.
What?
David's father has 3 sons.
Oh,
Snap,
what?
Crackle, and David.
Oh, this is a kind of MI5 question you get asked.
I know, yeah. No one's ever answered that right, and I'm like that
Here's one for
really
you.
annoying kid. Oh, okay.
Let me twist it around for you. Okay.
The tables have turned.
There are 10 parts of the body, which are 3 letters long. Can you name them all?
3 parts of the body.
10 parts of the body.
10 parts of the body, 3 letters
3
long.
letters long. Can you name them all?
Does knob have a K at the start?
Yes, it does, and that doesn't count. It's
Okay, so that's 4.
think of proper things.
All right. Ear.
Ear, good. 1.
Eye.
Eye, correct.
Lip.
Good. That's 3.
Ooh. All right. What else? Have I got any more on my head?
You do.
Arm.
Yep.
I mean, my arms aren't on my head. Yep. I'm not that.
Probably are on your head, but yeah.
Bum.
No, that doesn't count because that's slang. Keep going.
Toe.
Yes. Well done.
How many have I got?
You've got 5.
5. Okay, so 5 more. Hip.
Hip, correct. Yep.
Oh my goodness. Have I said leg?
You have not said leg.
Fantastic. I'm on 7.
I'm just typing all these down to make sure that you got them all.
I'm assuming nip is probably slang.
No.
I got 2 nips. And only 2, despite the rumours.
There's 3 left. You've done extraordinarily well.
Oh, thank you.
So top. We'll give you a bit of help. So top half and above. Now we've got 3 left.
Okay, focus on top half and above. Not elbow, not wrist, the thumb, arm, shoulder. No.
Maybe something bony that sits in your chest.
Rib.
Yeah, that's one.
Ooh.
And then 2 more.
That was a big help. 2 more.
I'm aware that there's only a certain amount of guessing time that an audience member can take whilst listening to a podcast. So I do feel the need to move this along as and when.
I may need to give up. I feel I've.
So there's think more around the mouth. How do you open your mouth?
Jaw.
Yeah, jaw. Good. And then the last one is.
Oh, bring it home, Connor.
Colgate or other toothpaste are good for your
gum.
Yes, that's it. Well done. Yeah.
Oh, that is an excellent piece of trivia.
10 so ear, eye, lip, arm, toe, hip, leg, rib, jaw, gum.
And that is what...
Okay, yeah.
I didn't know that medical training was this fun.
This was way before medical training. I think I was about 9 when I got that training. So I just thought I'd twist the tables, but yeah. Carry on.
I like it. I like when I'm not expecting it. Ed, is there an era that you wish you'd been born in, or are you largely happy with when you were born?
Oh, that's interesting, isn't it? For a while, I wanted to be born around about when Braveheart was set. Yeah, I just loved all the kind of mud huts and the sort of just sort of the. Not I mean,
technically, there's still an option for you. You know, you could do it if you wanted.
I could. Live in a mud hut and...
Yeah, why not?
I think showering might be an issue. I do like some of the mod cons, but I did think that a little bit more of a simple life back in those days. I mean, obviously, you only lived till you were about 40 or 35.
Yeah, there's real give and take with that.
So
that's
I don't know,
a good answer, though.
So, some sort of beautiful island, maybe where elixirs and potions were keeping. See, I'm going back to The Witcher now. I just I'd like to go back to a magical world. Thank you.
All right, Ed, what is the best kind of nut? You a hazelnut fan?
Oh, so
Peanut guy?
there isn't a correct answer for this one.
Oh no, this is purely your opinion.
Okay.
What do you think?
I'm going to say the best nut is Nutella. That's the best nut.
That is a good answer.
I've eaten a lot of Nutella.
Have you?
Yeah.
You know, that's interesting. On my other podcast, The Dinner Party, I was speaking to the brilliant Philippa Carson from Just These Please, the sketch group. And she was also talking about her love of Nutella this week. Maybe I need to get into Nutella.
It's good. I did go through a period during lockdown where I was eating things purely that I could put Nutella on as an excuse to eat it. And then at the end I thought, you know what the healthy option is just to eat a teaspoon of Nutella and not have the carbs that go with it. You know, that's healthy. That's what I told myself. It isn't healthy. Anyone out there just thinking about eating teaspoons of Nutella, that's not healthy.
What about just eating a hazelnut followed by a few cocoa nibs? Would that
I
be
feel
healthier?
you would be extremely disappointed.
It's just not an adequate replacement.
It's
All right,
not.
Ed, would you describe your leadership style as closer to Kermit the Frog or Miss Piggy? Or another Muppet entirely?
Kermit the Frog.
You're a Kermit guy.
Much more relaxed, isn't he?
He is, yeah. I've never seen you karate chop anyone, which is very much more Miss Piggy's energy.
No, yeah. I'd probably, you know, sort of delegate responsibility to other members of the team. That's how I would do. I think Kermit's more sort of chilled out and like that. I think that's.
He is, yeah. I could see you as a Kermit figure.
Anaesthetists are generally chilled out. That's what we like to do.
And no comment as to why. Ed, when watching murder mystery shows, are you good at solving them?
So, interestingly, you mentioned that. I was watching a show called Knives Out last night. Have you seen it? A movie?
Oh, the movie?
Yeah.
Oh, it's brilliant.
It is good. But I was scoffing because the mechanism of supposed murder was... without ruining it, but basically, let's just say there was an incident which might have involved injecting a large amount of morphine.
Right, yeah.
Right, and I was like,
yeah.
So when that happened, I was just like, because they were like, it's going to take effect in 10 minutes. I was like, you've just put something into a vein. It's not going to take 10 minutes, is it? Yeah, it's just going to go. That's like, you know, where's this 10 minutes malarkey coming from?
Work hindering your ability to just enjoy.
Yeah, I did. It distracted me from it. Anyway, so I did work out what was happening in that movie pretty early on.
Oh, that's good. Oh, very impressive.
But it's worth watching because there's lots of little nuances and sort of side stories with that which make it worth watching. So yeah.
Yeah.
Even if you get disappointed by the method of death.
I feel only people in your line of work would be disappointed by that. For someone like me who got a C in single award science GCSE, I was willing to let that kind of slight scientific inaccuracy go and just go for the ride. I had a wonderful time with it. Ed, what's your ambition for retirement?
Oh, I would like to have, I'm going to say, more than one dog. And
oh, yes.
Basically, more than one dog, unlimited amounts of Nutella, and
I love it.
A box set of... and unhindered broadband. That's the dream.
And that all feels very achievable.
That's what you think. That's what the broadband providers make you think.
But as we find out, to our chagrin, when we try
And
to start
mains gas.
recording this
Mains
early-
gas. I realise how amazing mains gas is. Obviously
yeah.
we've got it in, because if you go we're sort of Oxford based, but if you go just outside of Oxford, you've got little villages and towns that don't have mains gas, and they have to get their own oil, gas, or an LPG tank outside. And so how we pay just sort of an energy company just to give us some gas because there's pipe there. Suddenly you have to build that facility yourself because and it's because for the gas companies and stuff, it's just not worth it going to some of these villages. So we're here in 2020, and they're like, it's just not worth it. So actually, mains gas, I'm going to aim for that. That's going to be something I want to have in later life.
Oh, things must be going well for you, Ed, that these are just the little things that you want. Because that's nice. Ed, have you ever enjoyed a yogurt as much as the ladies in the adverts do? And if so, which yogurt?
Does Nutella count as a yogurt?
I guess you're eating it with a spoon.
Exactly. It depends how.
If that's the definition of yogurt.
Yeah, I've been eating a lot more smoothies recently. So I go running and then I make myself a smoothie which has a bit of yogurt in it. So I'll just put some, frozen fruit and then some yogurt. That's quite nice. So yeah, I'd say I probably. What adverts are you watching? 'Cause I haven't seen people.
I have to admit, it's been a few years since I've seen a yogurt ad where I really believed that the lady was enjoying the yogurt that much.
I haven't seen a yogurt advert like the Diet Coke 11:30 advert. I haven't seen that.
That is true. It's been too long. Yogurt makers, yogurt advertisers, if you're listening, bring back the people enjoying yogurt on adverts. People just don't seem happy enough with their yogurts at the minute. Ed, final question. Was Judy Garland married to the actor who played the Tin Man, the Cowardly Lion, or the Scarecrow?
Is there a right answer for this?
There is.
Say
Judy
again?
Garland, was she married to the actor who played the Tin Man, the Cowardly Lion, or the Scarecrow?
Okay, I'm going to say the lion.
That is incorrect.
What
Can
was
we
it?
go again?
Scarecrow?
Have one more go?
The Tin Man?
The correct answer is actually no.
Oh!
Was Judy Garland married to the actor who played the Tin Man, the Cowardly Lion, or the Scarecrow? No, she was not. That was the meanest question I've ever written.
Did they all play They didn't all play. Not one actor played all three of them, though.
No. My inflection was wrong. Really, I should have read the question. Was Judy Garland married to the actor who played the Tin Man, the Cowardly Lion, or the Scarecrow? And the answer is no.
Who was she married to?
I'm a sneaky bastard, Ed, is what I'm saying. I'm a very sneaky bastard.
You wouldn't be able to say that on BBC Radio.
I know.
Who's she married to?
Oh, I have no idea.
Oh.
But she wasn't married to any of those actors. That was just a little thing. Just a little joke. Well, there we go.
You got me.
I'm a sneaky one.
You got me, officer.
Right. Well, look, we're having a blast doing our outdoor and drive-in gigs like you heard earlier in the show, but we're itching to get back to our lovely regular venues like the Jericho Cafe, Common Ground, and the Jericho Tavern, all snug and cozy with our brilliant audiences. So let's transport you back now to one of those evenings in the basement of the Jericho Cafe with a set recorded live at Jericho Comedy. Here is the fantastic Ed Patrick in action.
Woo!
Woo!
So I'll tell you a bit about me. My name is Ed, and I'm also a junior doctor, so it is lovely to be getting paid for some out-of-hours work. This is a sweet deal. I know some people don't believe me when I say that as well. They're like, oh, you're lying. You're not really a doctor. It's all an act. You just have to ignore those patients, but... I'm an anaesthetist as well, so the last thing you see before you fall asleep is my face. It's a good fit, though. I think you got to pick something, and I look like an anaesthetist, don't I? Crazy hair, beard. I look like someone who knows his drugs, don't I? And it's true, it's true. You know, we use some of the strongest drugs, some things like fentanyl, ketamine, cocaine. And then we go to work. Everyone knows also we put people to sleep as well. And if you've ever had an operation, that moment where you go to sleep, that moment where you lose control, it's the most terrifying thing. So I always try to take people's minds off it. And I was chatting to someone and to take the mind off it, and it turned out they were a plasterer. And I said, oh, I've been looking for a plasterer for ages. And my consultant just went, well, Ed, now seems like a good time to negotiate a price. I'll tell you the best thing, though. The best thing, right, is when you, about being, you know, in medicine and everything, I'll tell you the best thing about it is when you see someone, a patient, for a second time after they've been ill, and then they come back to see you and they're better, and they say to you, thank you so much. I feel so much better. Thank you so much. And then they walk out the door and you sit back, and this sudden realization hits you that all those times sat in front of medical school exams now make sense, because you just think, wow, that was a complete guess. I was lucky. Because you never know what to expect. That's what I'm saying. You think you have an idea of how things work. You know what my job was like last week, Alistair? You know what I did in the hospital? I walked around with a bag of foreskins. That was my job. That was my job. They weren't all mine. They weren't even real foreskins. They were fake foreskins to put on fake penises, or peni, I don't know what the plural is. Because we were teaching... Just wanted to say it is peni, I've checked. Oxford English Dictionary editor here, thank you. We had them because we were putting them on penises to... I don't know why we had to have put them on, but anyway, I had to put them on. Yeah, I know this. They were quite generous. So we were putting them on because we were teaching students how to put in catheters, which are tubes that go into the bladder. Like just the basic things, like don't maintain eye contact. That's like, just like one kid just like feeding and just staring intently at the face. I'm like, whoa, Harold Shipman. Keep your eyes on the prize, okay? One student, though, after asked questions, I turned to him and said, look, listen, what kind of water would you use to inflate the catheter balloon? And I was expecting sterile, maybe clean, and he just went, ooh, still? I just love the idea. Yes, that sparkling was an option. He's going to be a doctor.
Okay, Ed, I know it's your day off from doctoring, but we've received a number of messages from our lovely audience members asking for help with some of their medical issues. So might you be able to help us out in a special medical edition of our Agony Ant feature?
The Agony Ant. The agony, the little insect.
The Agony Ant carrying our audience's problems on their backs, yes.
I will help the army of agony ants carrying little bits of burdens and see what I can do.
Fantastic. All right. Ed, Anonymous from the North Pole has been in touch. For years, I've had a bright, shining red nose. While it's caused me some difficulty at work in the beginning, it didn't take long for the police to stop hassling me when they realised that my nose could actually come in quite handy in foggy conditions. However, I haven't seen any other reindeer with shiny red noses, even amongst the magic ones that can fly. Is there a medical explanation for this?
It sounds like this is a chronic inflammatory condition of the nose, and I think if a little bit of steroids cream maybe with a little bit of emollient on top of that might just calm it down a little bit. I mean, you don't want to stand out, do you? Not in the North Pole.
No, really, you're just going to be seen as stealing the show, and we all know there's one hero in the North Pole. There isn't room for two. Mrs. Claus, she's the real hero.
Absolutely, and everyone's looking out for Rudolph, the very smooth-nosed reindeer. That's what's...
That's how the song goes. Fantastic. Well, Ed, we've had a text message from Winnie in 100 Acre Wood. He says, some of my friends have been giving me a hard time recently for what they're calling a pretty severe addiction to honey. I'll admit I enjoy the occasional giant pot of honey, but I could quit any time I want. I just don't want to. How do I convince them that consuming my body weight in honey every day isn't a problem?
So saying that you can just quit something, but you just don't want to, I mean, that's a very murky ground, isn't it? You know, is that true or not? What I would do is to prove to them that it's okay, is that you're obviously proving to them that eating a pot of honey every day is okay. I would, just for a day or two, switch that to Nutella and see the poor outcomes you have, to prove to them that actually, but honey is a natural and much better resource. And if it wasn't honey, it'd be Nutella. There you go.
Fantastic. I hope that helps Winnie in 100 Acre Wood. Ed, Wiley Coyote has tweeted us. In the course of my work over the years, I've sustained a number of injuries. I've been hit by a train, had anvils dropped on my head literally more times than I can remember. I've fallen off several cliffs. I've inhaled a lot of fumes from paint while I've been trying to disguise walls as tunnels. And I've been blown up by Acme Dynamite most days. I don't think I should have survived most of these things. What's your medical opinion on how I'm still here?
Well, I mean, you've just described what it's like being a junior doctor in the NHS, and I think sometimes people can be a bit overdramatic.
So we should have said, really, this message is coming from Dr. Wiley Coyote.
Dr. Coyote, yeah.
Brilliant. Well, we have one last message. We received a DM on Twitter from Olive Oil. My husband Popeye seems to have a pretty severe allergic reaction to spinach. Every time he eats it, he swells up and develops superhuman strength. This comes in handy as I often find myself getting kidnapped. But I'm worried about his long-term health. Between this and the constant pipe smoking, he's a bit of a mess. What would you advise?
Is it an allergy? Like you get people saying, "Oh, I've got an allergy," but like proper. Is it a proper allergy? So, for instance, if you're allergic to penicillin, you might get a rash. That's part of an allergy. But
yeah.
And then if you get swelling to something, so like if you get, the worrying things we get for anaphylaxis allergies, when people get swelling of the lips, mouth, and the airway, so you're worried about their breathing and stuff.
Yeah.
Popeye,
from the signs of this,
it sounds like potentially. I don't want to cause a rift between them, but it sounds like the husband is potentially not telling the wife that he's going to the gym. That would be my thing. I think he's probably working out more than he's letting on.
I see. And so when he eats spinach, that's actually nothing to do with anything.
Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, I would say swelling of the muscles for giving you extra strength is possibly not an allergy.
It's
possibly
just
not.
A side effect.
I can tell you,
regular exercise.
I've been growing cucumbers because in a panic during lockdown, I thought I need to grow some cucumbers, and we've got a lot of cucumber. If you want a cucumber, by the way, I'm not even joking. We've got loads.
I would love a cucumber.
And I've not developed any skills or physical improvements from the cucumbers. I've eaten a lot of. I've stopped eating the skin of the cucumbers because they're quite thick sometimes, but. I've not had the same experience.
Wow. Well, I mean, who knows? I'm assuming also that your girlfriend isn't kidnapped as regularly as Olive Oil seems to be kidnapped.
No, but she is a cucumber murderer.
Oh no!
So we had 8 cucumber plants because I panicked and planted 8, and then I didn't think they'd all grow. They were just from seeds, and then she took out 6 of them. To repot elsewhere, and guess what? Every single one died. Right, every single one. I was like, how did they all die? Yeah. So I told my mum, and she was like, "Mum was like, it's probably because the roots are very sensitive." And I was like, "There's something more sinister going on."
Yeah, it raises a huge number of questions about her character.
Yeah, well, get this. I go away. I go out. I'm at work, and I come back, and we've had a trim of the 2 remaining cucumber plants. Right, and one of them one of them looks very unwell indeed, like wilting, stuff like that. I have a little investigation, and guess what? Someone has cut the stem to the root of one of them, and it's just hanging there, dying. So now we have one cucumber plant left.
Oh my word! You hire a guard to keep an eye on that thing.
Either
Clearly,
that, or,
your girlfriend
either
can't be
that,
trusted.
either that, or she has chosen her favourite. It's been the Hunger Games of cucumbers. The Cucumber Games. The Cumber Games.
Brilliant. Well, there we go. Listeners, I hope that's helped with some of your medical issues. Ed, before we go, can you direct us? How do we hear and see more of it? If I wanted to stalk Ed Patrick from right now, how would I best go about doing that?
I check up on the back catalogue of various podcasts after you've listened to this one. So you can go to your favourite podcast outlet, and there are 3 to check out. There is The Comedian's Surgery, which has about 50-odd episodes where I chat to people about their health stories and experiences. Very funny, very informative. And then there is also Dandelion, the Witcher, and the Wardrobe. So if you want to find out about my nerdy and geekiness and hear about Bilal Zafar's nerdy geekiness, you can find that too. As a compendium to the Netflix series as well. And also you can check out Coffee and COVID, which is a podcast I did during lockdown, just 5 or 6 episodes, catching up with some friends in the NHS whilst about what life was like for healthcare workers when we were doing that. That's quite interesting and funny too. And then you can just go to my website, edpatrickcomedy.com. There's a few things on there. And just follow me on Twitter. That's the other thing. So I just
brilliant. Well,
wait for that next super viral tweet I get that I got a couple of weeks ago. All those crafted tweets and everything, and it was a tweet about NHS car parking that went viral to about 5.5 million people, because that is what the public want.
More car park material from
Exactly.
Hey, if Hugh Davies can get nominated for Best Newcomer at Edinburgh with a show called The Car Park, and you go viral with a tweet about a car park, clearly there is something that the British people like.
Obviously,
and it is car parks.
Hot stuff. Hot
bumper
content. To bumper in the car parks.
Hey! Well, Ed, we will add links to all of those brilliant things into the episode description. And thank you so much for chatting to me, Ed. I hope to see you again at a lovely Jericho Comedy Show very, very soon.
Me too. Take care. See you later.
Cheers, buddy. Bye. Well, there we go. That was the good Dr. Ed Patrick there. Check the episode description for all the links to Ed's podcasts and Twitch content, and hopefully you'll be seeing Ed live and in person at a Jericho Comedy Show very soon. We've got loads of brilliant shows coming up over the next few weeks, from our drive-in shows and outdoor shows to some actual indoor gigs at brilliant venues. We'll be at the North Wall Arts Centre in Oxford on the 26th of September. Tickets are available on the North Wall website. We've got big plans for more fun shows throughout the autumn, so make sure you follow Jericho Comedy on all the social media things and join our mailing list for all of that info. If you're enjoying the podcast, please do tell your friends about it. Share it on social media, like us, rate us, all that stuff. We love making this podcast, and we'd be really, really thankful if you would help us reach a bigger audience with it, because we love doing it. You can also check out our other new podcast, The Dinner Party, wherever you get your podcast. We've got some cracking guests who have taken part in that, and we got some amazing guests lined up over the coming weeks. So make sure you subscribe to The Dinner Party wherever you get your podcasts. As ever, if you can donate a bit of money toward the vital work Oxfordshire Mind are doing, we'd be ever so grateful. We've raised over £70,000 in the last few years for them, but without our regular shows, our ability to fundraise has been affected by that. So please do follow the link in the episode description. If you've enjoyed this episode, just donate a couple of quid. That would be really, really good. We'll be back with another episode next week, but until then, thanks so much for listening, and bye-bye.